Welcome to the Skills for Secondary School Success 4S Curriculum Professional Development session on Unit 3, Managing My Learning. In this session, we will learn about the key activities in each lesson for Unit 3. There will also be opportunities for you to think about how you would teach these lessons with your specific students. It will be helpful to have your copy of the teacher's manual so you can follow along in a hard copy of the text as we proceed through this PD session. We will conclude with more time for reflection and discussion as we think about starting Unit 3 with students. Like in the PD sessions for the orientation and Units 1 and 2, we will begin our time together with a reflection as if we are in a connection circle. Although we will not be in a circle with other people today, it will still be helpful to reflect and connect with our experiences teaching the lessons in Unit 2, focused on helping students manage their stress and develop positive problem-solving strategies. Consider one or both of the following questions. How did students respond to lessons about dealing with stress and confronting challenges? What changes in growth mindset are you hoping to see in your students? How about in yourself as a teacher? Feel free to jot your ideas on a piece of paper or just hold your thoughts in your mind as you proceed through the rest of this session. For any reflection pages, also feel free to pause the video and think further about these questions before you move on. In this section of the PD, we will provide an overview of the structure of Unit 3, Managing My Learning. Then we will review each of the 8 lessons in the unit. The first 3 lessons focus on organization and self-management skills. After these, there are specific lessons that help with building reading skills, using graphic organizers, taking good notes, and using outlines to learn. Finally, this unit concludes with a lesson on goal setting. It is important to introduce students to the Unit 3 essential question during the first lesson and remind students frequently of the question throughout the unit. This encourages students to take responsibility for managing their learning and building the skills and strategies to do so. How might you respond to this question for yourself? Take a couple of minutes to jot down some thoughts or just hold your ideas in your mind as you continue with this session. Now, this section reviews the main activities for each of the lessons in Unit 3. As you learn about these lessons, keep your students in mind and how they may react to each of these lessons. Consider the following questions and jot down your ideas as we proceed. What are the key points I need to remember about this lesson for when I teach it? What else might I need to know to deliver this lesson? What issues could arise that I need to plan for in advance? Keep in mind that much more detailed information on all the lessons are available in the teacher's manual. The title of Lesson 1 is Staying Organized. The main learning objective for the first lesson in Unit 3 is to introduce students to learning skills they will need in high school, beginning with organizing all their materials for different classes. To reach this objective, students will first engage in an overview of the purpose of the entire unit through a brief game. Then students will participate in 3 main activities. For the game, you will need to print student activity sheets with different scenarios. Students will be divided into 7 teams. Each team will read a different scenario together and try to match the challenge represented in the scenario to one of the specific strategies presented in the lessons of Unit 3. Then the class will dive into the theme of Lesson 1, Staying Organized. In the first main activity, students will think, pair, share about what they need to have in class and back at home each day to be successful. The class will then debrief their ideas together. In the second and third activities, you will share some different organizational strategies with students. Students will have time individually to sort and organize their current school materials using these strategies. The title of Lesson 2 is Managing Time and Setting Priorities. The main learning objective for the second lesson in Unit 3 is to help students learn to manage and prioritize their time and use a planner to organize assignments and dates. To reach this objective, students will engage in 4 main activities. In the first activity, students will partner read a scenario about a student's busy life in high school. The partners will then work together to use a planner page to organize all the students' priorities that were discussed in the scenario. In the second activity of this second lesson in Unit 3, students will work individually to write down all the things they do throughout a typical day in detail. Then they will share in pairs and as a whole class. In the third and fourth activities, you will use the PowerPoint presentation provided in the PowerPoint section of the Unit 3 curricular materials to discuss with students the kinds of things they might include in their planner. Students will then have time to practice using a planner on their own. The title of Lesson 3 is Planning for Effective Studying, Maintaining a Study Space and Minimizing Distractions. The main learning objective for the third lesson in Unit 3 is to help students plan for the kind of study space and study routine they will need to be successful in high school. To reach this objective, students will first watch a short video clip to understand the importance of staying focused. Then, students will participate in 4 main activities. In the first activity, students will read about the issues of a multitasking brain. Then they will complete a personal multitasking inventory, share these with a partner, then engage in a short class discussion. In the second activity, you will use the PowerPoint slides provided in the PowerPoint section of Unit 3 curricular materials to lead a full class discussion on the kinds of things that should be included in a good study space. In the third activity, students will complete a study habits inventory, then discuss their ideas with the whole class. Finally, in the fourth and final activity, students will create their own personal study plan guided by questions on the PowerPoint slide for the lesson. Let's take some time to think about your reactions to these first 3 lessons. Please jot your thoughts down so you can refer to these ideas later. How important are these lessons on organization, managing time, and building a study plan for your students? How much instruction or guidance will they already have had on these topics? How do you think they will react to these lesson activities? Do you foresee any challenges as students interact with these lessons? And what ideas do you have for keeping them engaged? The title of Lesson 4 is Attentive Reading. The main learning objective for the fourth lesson in Unit 3 is to cultivate students' belief in the importance of attentive before and during reading strategies and provide time to practice. To reach this objective, students will engage in two main activities, each divided into a Part A and a Part B. Part A of the first activity may be a review for many students, but it will be an important reminder about specific strategies that help students understand and retain what they read. The PowerPoint slides provided in the PowerPoint section of the Unit 3 curricular materials will help to guide your instruction and the class discussion. In Part B of the first activity, you will model the kinds of reading strategies that are important for students to use while reading a text. Students will follow along with the reading. In Part A of the second activity, students will work in teams to answer questions about reading strategies from a choice of scenarios. Then they will debrief their ideas as a class. In Part B of the second activity, students will practice the strategies they have learned as they read with a partner. The title of Lesson 5 is Learning How to Learn. The main learning objective for the fifth lesson in Unit 3 is to help students learn to organize information to learn it more quickly and effectively, and use their 5 senses to help boost their memory. This lesson continues to present reading strategies and help students use graphic organizers to summarize information in ways that make it easier to remember. To reach this objective, students will engage in two main activities, with the first one divided into a Part A and a Part B. Keep in mind that the Do Now activity in this lesson will carry over into the introduction and framing. After students have brainstormed topics related to professional sports, they will work in teams to try to organize these under broader categories. Then you will lead the class to think about how they can represent their categories graphically. After the whole class discussion, you will use a concept map to share the ideas in the rest of the lesson. In Part A of the first activity, you will guide students through a read aloud about the SQ3R strategy. This strategy stands for S, survey, Q, question, and the 3 R's, read, recite, review. Students will follow along on lesson sheets that you can print out for them or provide on a computer from the Unit 3 Student Materials section of this Google Classroom. In Part B of the first activity, students will work in 4 different teams to organize the information from the reading into different graphic organizers: a mind map, a sequence chain, a cause and effect chart, and a picture diagram. These organizer sheets are also provided in the Unit 3 Student Materials section. In the second activity of Lesson 5, you will use the PowerPoint slides to present information about the brain and memory. Then students will partner read a text about memory and use a graphic organizer to organize key points from the reading. Finally, partners will share their organizers with each other. Now is another chance to think about your reactions to these last few lessons. Please jot your thoughts down so you can refer to these ideas later. What do you think are the most helpful parts of these lessons on attentive reading and using graphic organizers for your students? Have they had similar instruction on these ideas in the past? How well are students mastering these skills? How do you think they will react to these lesson activities? What challenges do you foresee arising? What ideas do you have for keeping them engaged? The title of Lesson 6 is Taking Useful Notes. The main learning objective for the sixth lesson in Unit 3 is to introduce students to the Cornell note-taking method and give them an opportunity to practice it. To reach this objective, students will engage in two main activities. Before either of these activities, however, you will share a concept map that depicts what students will learn in today's lesson. First, students will learn some secrets to successful note-taking. Second, you will demonstrate how to take notes with a short text entitled, "It's Not Too Soon." Finally, students will have time to practice note-taking on their own with a text called Becoming a Better Student. In this first activity of Lesson 6, you will use the PowerPoint presentation provided in the PowerPoint section of Unit 3 curricular materials in this Google Classroom to explain the Cornell note-taking method. You will then demonstrate using this method with a short text, "It's Not Too Soon," included in the student material section for Unit 3. It would be important to print a copy for each student to use during the class in advance. In this second activity, it is the students' turn to practice. Students will partner read another text called Becoming a Better Student and practice taking Cornell notes. This text is provided in the student materials section of Unit 3. The title of Lesson 7 is Measuring My Learning. The main learning objective for the seventh lesson in Unit 3 is to introduce students to outlining and important test-taking strategies. To reach this objective, students will engage in two main activities. In the first activity, you will model the process of outlining with a text about how outlining can help students learn and remember material better to use this learning in the future. In the second activity, students again have a chance to practice. First, they will partner read a text on test-taking strategies. Then they will work either independently or in pairs to outline the text. Let's pause again to think about your reactions to these last few lessons. Please jot your thoughts down so you can refer to these ideas later. What do you think are the most helpful parts of these lessons on note-taking and outlining for your students? Have they had similar instruction on these ideas in the past? How well are students mastering these skills? How do you think they will react to these lesson activities? What challenges do you foresee arising? And what ideas do you have for keeping them engaged? The title of Lesson 8 is Setting Smart Goals. The main learning objective for the 8th lesson in Unit 3 is to guide students through the process of setting these specific types of goals. To reach this objective, students will engage in 4 main activities. In this first activity, you will divide the students into 4 teams. Each team will read and discuss a different brief biography and quotation about goals. These are provided in the student materials section of Unit 3 in this Google Classroom. Then the groups will report back their ideas to the entire class. In the second activity, students will read a text on the importance of setting goals and discuss the text with a partner. After the partner work, the class will regroup for a full class discussion of their ideas. In the third activity, you will use the PowerPoint presentation provided in the PowerPoint section of Unit 3 in this Google Classroom to explain what each letter in the SMART acronym means and how this provides a useful framework for goal setting. The S stands for specific, M is for measurable, A is for attainable, R is for relevant, and T is for timely. Finally, in the fourth activity, students will use the SMART Goals planning sheet provided in the student materials section of Unit 3 to set at least one SMART goal for themselves. They will then share their goals with a partner and/or with the entire class. Take a few minutes to consider your thoughts about Lesson 8 and Unit 3 overall. Please jot your thoughts down so you can refer to these ideas later. What do you envision will be students' challenges with setting SMART goals? How can you plan ahead to address these challenges? How will these lessons in Unit 3 help your students become better prepared for high school? What are your own professional goals as you think ahead to guiding students through the lessons of Unit 3? How can you share with students your own personal experiences with goal setting to help students make connections and model your own authentic practice of goal setting? That concludes Unit 3, Managing My Learning. Again, the teacher's manual, all the classroom materials, student activity sheets, and PowerPoint presentations are posted in the 4S Google Classroom. We wish you success with Unit 3, and we will see you next time for the Professional Development Training session for Unit 4.